a road with it. The middle is
Yeah,
like
you have to
parts.
fix your Yamot with the pictures.
Huh?
Fix the Yamot with the pictures.
Okay.
The moment they did that before, they did that.
9 days, he says, Mi'atin v'simcha.
Yeah, Memate B'Simcha. Mishliach L'Tzlav Memate B'Simcha.
It means, Hasidic touch is that try to diminish your sorrow through simcha.
Memate Via, V-I-A Simcha. Memate how? B'Simcha. That's pretty funny.
So, somebody told me a joke that I like very much. I think the Miller was a Mashiach in Chaim for a while. One day an older Bacher comes very late in the morning to the shiur. So he says, I'm sorry I'm late. He says, but I got engaged last night. So he says to him, it's all right, sir, don't let it happen again.
They say he was a tough guy.
Tough?
They say he was a tough fellow.
I was at one of his lectures one evening,
Yeah.
and it was wintertime. I was at one of his lectures one evening,
I heard him speak once. I'll never
and
forget.
people were starting to doze. It was, it's warm in the room. It's wintertime. People are tired. He said, "Open the windows, keep you awake."
I heard him speak once, I'll never forget it. It was in Canarsie, in the 70s.
And it's still there. Was it Canarsie?
He moved to Kings Highway, I think. There was a landmark case
Yeah.
where the Supreme Court forbade people to hit kids in school. There was a principal who had a cannon of a canoe
Yeah.
in his office and used it. So, he said in the olden days, he didn't behave. He said his teacher gave him away. When he came home, his parents gave him away. He has no choice but to do tshuva. She said they should take garbage men. Not the guys who work for the city that have to pass the test. The regular Italian guys. And they should put them on the Supreme Court and tell them to use their common sense. So the country would run like a well-oiled machine. Yeah. You have the ability to speak about very musical topics that you may very
About music topics.
Yes, you speak about, emotions and stuff.
I see. Fellow that has to speak here on a Sunday night. But only Sam Brady, right? Was the guy I saw there. I know they got videos years ago before you moved on to the stationery store there, which wrote on what was called Bray's Stationery. This guy Sam Bray. Remains very good. He got into that conservative shul on Montana Road. I think it's called Sharia School. Not for Sam Kamara, very, very good. I'm pretty sure he was from Tana, my father's hometown. I'm pretty sure he's from Tana. Very, very interesting. Well, I see they found him to speak. Very, very Holocaust-centric, I see they found him to speak on this. Very, very interesting fellow.
He's an older man,
Yeah.
so he was in the camps.
I don't know. I don't even remember his whole story. I think I speak to him a lot, and I think he came from Tana. I don't remember what his
Give me the water,
journey
also
was.
water. Do you mind?
He's very involved in the Holocaust Center, Spring Valley. Very, very interesting.
Thank you. I see. You mentioned once a graduate of Chachmei Lublin.
Yes, he was just moved there a few months ago.
Really?
He's 102 years old. I'll share with you just one very quick story. Until last year, when he really was much more ill with heart disease, but he used to put up his own sukkah. He was jumping around his house very, very late with heart disease. Very, very interesting. And Ephraim Waxman got a hold of him. He heard they brought him to speak to his yeshiva. You know, he was the kind of guy who wanted his yeshiva voice to me. And then he would send, Ephraim Waxman would send boys to his house for sukkahs to help him build the sukkah, not to him, Shabir needed help. He'd send the boys to help him the sukkah. So a few years ago, they came to build the sukkah, and he was that grateful for their help. And then when they were finished, he took out some cookies he gave to them. And ate the cookies, like nice boys, and one of them just sipped off an alamichya. He said to me, you know alamichya by heart. Yes. Wow, I was just very impressed. So Rabbi Waxman said that you were impressed that the yeshiva boy knows alamichya by heart. He says, in 1930, we knew alamichya by heart. We had cookies twice a year. On Purim and Rosh Hashanah. We never made an alamichya. Nobody had occasion to know alamichya by heart. To know alamichya.
Poland.
He was from Poland.
Wow.
When I went to Poland a few years ago, I went with the boat Britannic Deborah. I told him where his Makam was. We one time where his Makam was the base medrash. He told me exactly where they reconstructed. I sat his place.
Chachmei Lublin.
I sat his place in the yeshiva.
So you heard this from Rabbi Waxman?
I heard this from somebody who heard it from Rabbi Waxman. But when I spoke to him himself, he said, yes, I can true. It was a story. I said that.
Cookies twice a year.
Twice a year. So who knew all the who made an hour?
Interesting. Rabbi Waxman. You know.
I actually told the story about a fellow who died in
Too many cookies by us, huh?
No,
We have too many cookies.
Food's not an issue.
Yeah, yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, people don't realize what starvation was. What does it feel like to go 3 days without food, right? Melef, and not just for the people themselves, for their children, for their babies. Yeah. I think the last few years, literally the last few years, for the first time in history, more people died from obesity than from starvation, which is unique in 5,700 years. More people, yeah. Why not? The World Health Organization. Related, of course.
And if they didn't have obesity, they would have the heart disease, they would have that.
So which is why now one of the absolute most popular diets, which actually has a lot of scientific validity to it, is what's called intermittent starvation, which is very, very hot now, which is basically condensing all your meals into an 8 or 9 hours, preferably 8-hour window. So you eat, let's say, from your first meal at noon, and then you finish by 7, and you don't eat again until noon the next day. So you fast, 16 hours. So a lot of scientific
Really?
It's very, very hot, especially with women. But it's very, very hot in terms of weight loss and blood sugar. So I'm actually going back. It's not I'm just going back to what was the Sorrow 1. Is now you understand.
So you don't eat till 12?
You don't eat till 12. You eat from 12 to 7 basically.
And that's
whatever
it.
You want, and then you start again the next cycle. There's a lot of validity to it. On the mushal, for example, a very interesting story in rats, what their hunger and feeding patterns have a lot to do with humans. Very, very interesting story. If they feed them, they give them unrestricted diet. Put them in a cage and give them every chazarai they want, but unrestricted time, they get obese. They become obese rats. But if they give it to them within a 7-hour time span and the rest of the time no food, they don't get fat. They eat.
Really?
And
Wow.
it's a very hot diet now. It's a very
Interesting.
interesting person to say, going back to what was once the Sarah.
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting.
You choose your 8 hours.
Right.
Right, yes, correct.
What?
Time restricted instead of food.
Yeah.
Coffee is they argue depends on which Rishon you believe in. Coffee most people have.
Okay, we're holding page Yud Aleph, the third paragraph from the top, Omnam. Talking about cookies, everybody knows Alamich, everybody knows Alamichya Bahart. He sent it from Florida? Federal Express? Hazel what? Okay. The third paragraph from the top, page Yud Aleph. Since if I give a summary, that's going to be the whole shiur. So I'm going to start off without giving a summary, and I'm going to rely that everybody remembers what we have learned. And if not, you should review. And even if you do, you should still review. However, harav hamayaker b'muskala, interesting expression. The teacher who's miyaker, which comes from the word yakar, he cherishes. The muskalos means truths, ideas. He is a man of ideas. Muskal is the term the Rambam always uses for most of the Chaykrim of Yemei HaBinayim, most of the Jewish thinkers of Middle Ages who speak about seichel and ideas. The term is always muskal or muskalos, from the word ideas, insights. So he says this teacher who cherishes muskalos, which are truths, insights, awareness, al yedei shenoilad etzloi seichel chadash, umerumam biyoyser maskalas yakduma. Remember, we're in the middle of the shiur. This whole mimer is one long shiur, pun intended. So we're in the middle of this shiur. I don't mean this shiur. We're in the middle of the shiur that's going on here. It's been a long shiur. And he had this new haskalah, right? This new insight, this new idea, this new epiphany. And as we recall, he slowly moved upward from his present communication. And in each stage of the 3 stages of Chachma Bina Das, he becomes more and more absent from the present communication with the student. The first stage, Chachma, already requires a certain absence. It takes him away, even though externally everything may continue, but the recipient feels or experiences a diminished intensity or presence in the communication. Or to use the expression of Rabbeinu Tam, Dvarim hayotzim min halev nichnasim al halev. The leiv is missing a little bit. In stage 2, the words may also become somewhat distorted, meaning even the external layer of the teaching is affected, even though it continues. But in the 3rd level, when he goes up to Das, now he is completely silent. Everything is stopped. Abruptly, the communication, the hashpah stops. The Talmud is left, so to speak, cold. The whole chiyus, the whole life, the whole tainug, the whole flow of energy, of love, of ideas is interrupted. That's on his side. Now we go to the other side. The teacher who cherishes ideas, he cherishes it, he's miyakir it, he appreciates it. and his entire life is dedicated to truth, to know truth, to teach truth. When he experiences in his mind this seichel chadash, this new idea, which is so much more elevated than his previous awareness, what happens? Nasa etzloi tzihivas panim. So his face actually starts shining. Tzihivas panim is, his face takes on a new demeanor. Ke'inyin, similar to what the Gemara says. I think about Rabbi Yehuda, the Yerushalmi in Shabbos. Tzahavu panav ayidei shemotza toisefta chadata. If my memory serves me correctly, there's something, the nature of the story is that there was a matrunissa. There was a queen, a princess, who saw Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yehuda's face was on fire. So she said, "You've been drinking lately? You're such a great teacher. Is this what you do before you teach? You get drunk, inebriated, intoxicated?" His face was on fire. He said, no. Matzasi toisefta chadata. Which is, I found a new toisefta. I found a new braisa. This is what caused Tzahav Upanav, that his face had a different color, it had a life to it. So that's the expression in Yerushalmi and Shabbos Perek Ches. Tzahav Upanav ayidei shemotza toisefta chadata. He found chadata, we learned before, atika and chadata. Atika is old, and chadata in Aramaic is new. We said kasha atika mechadata, right? The old is more difficult than the new, so this is motzah toisefta chadata. Umispoil ata me'achidush and izgalaloyata. Because the teacher just experienced a chiddush, an innovative idea, he gets nispal, he gets affected, he's moved. So what happens here is there is a paradox between the experience of the student and the experience of the teacher. The experience of the student, the flow just stopped, and his face actually turns cold and dry. The experience of the teacher, he experiences what's called tzihivas panim, a new color in the face. Why? Because it's so precious. This moment is so precious for him. And because it's so precious, there is an excitement that he experiences now with this new idea. V'zen nikra his galus moichin da'atika bezayin midas shel hamashpiyah. We now go back to that original Kabbalistic code language about the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av and the 7 weeks after Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Simchas Torah, and so forth. We had an expression that there is a new level of moichin, his galus moichin da'atika bezayin midas shel hamashpiyah. That the deepest level of awareness, called moichin of Atik, is revealed within the emotions, within the 7 midas of the mashpiyah. In other words, the mashpiyah, the teacher, experiences at this moment a new level of awareness, which we'll get back to the details of this. Back to the mashal, v'hinei. Hamakabel, kisharoy b'fnei Rabbi, shetzav upanov. Achakol ha'iluyim v'yistalkus shirah b'ashbas Rabbi Akademes. To the student himself goes through a process. Remember that the teacher didn't just grasp the insight like this. The chachma happens in a flash, but the bina and the das take a lot of time. So in the beginning of the histalkus, in the beginning of the departure, the ascent of the teacher, the student doesn't know exactly what's happening. The teacher himself is struggling with grasping a new idea. There is a certain ascent, but without a clear tachlis of what is going on. He just knows that his teacher went somewhere. He went elsewhere. As the teacher delves more into the new idea and ascends more and more with more distance and remoteness, the student feels yet even more absence. Until finally the teacher grasps it and the student is left cold and dry because the whole hashpah interrupts. But in the beginning, what happens is the teacher himself is also struggling with this new insight. So he says, but the makabel, kisharoye b'fnei Rabbi shetzahav upanov. Achar kol ha'iluyim v'yistalkus shirah b'ashbas Rabbi Akademes. After all of the departures and the ascent of the teacher who left the previous hashpah Hagam she'etzloi la'is ata nifsek achis mekabolos hashpah kedemes. Even though now, for him, there was just an interruption. No communication, no flow, no expression of love. He's not getting everything he was getting his whole life. Im kol zehu misnachem. He comforts himself. Umekavi, he hopes, lashpas yoiser nadam mashu davar chadosh gam etzel hamashpia. He knows that one day the teacher will give this to him too, the new insight. Ki yadu aloi, because he knows shebinyan hazacher me'achasadim chuli v'teva hatoiv chuli teva hatoiv lahetiv umestama yigala loi gam hamtza hachadash. He imagines. He uses here two expressions from Kabbalah. One is binyan hazachem hachasadim, which means the construction of the male comes from kindness. We'll explain that later. And one is teva hatov lahetiv. The nature of good is to bestow good. So therefore, he assumes that this teacher is not experiencing new insights for himself. Teva hatov lahetiv. He's a real mentor. He's going to give that to me as well. Achein tzarich loy la'oirer es Rabbi mechadosh. However, he needs to trigger and arouse within the teacher the desire to give him the new idea. V'yadua, and it's known shechalol reikon shelamakabel v'hanochas hatzmusoi ma'oider tainug ha'poshet shelamashpia la'ashpia loy. This is a fascinating insight. What is that which arouses the deepest pleasure in a teacher to give? The answer is the chalol reikon of the mashpia and the hanachas hatzmusa. Chalol reikon means that he opens a space, an empty space, in order to receive. Hanachas hatzmusa means even deeper, but it's connected. From the makabel. I stand corrected. Hanachas hatzmusa means he suspends, he puts aside. Hanacha, like he puts aside. Atzmusai, his essence, becoming a complete open conduit and vessel, yearning and desiring to receive. It's impossible for a mashpia to refuse that, to look away from that. That arouses that pure yearning, that samalacha nafshi, kamalacha besari, that David HaMelech describes, that chalal reika, the tshuka, right? What does Hashem tell Chava? Vel ishech chukasech. That shuka, that yearning, that desire, where he's ready to put everything aside. Hanachas hatzmusai is an akudah of Mesiras Nefesh in terms of a mental space. Hanachas hatzmusai means I put myself completely aside to become an empty vessel, not a full one. Full one is a different experience. That's not the Talmud Muvik. That's, just somebody sitting around who wants to argue with you. Hanachas hatzmusa means to suspend the very atzmius in order to be a makabel, which is why being a makabel is a very, very challenging task. To be a makabel is the hardest thing, which is why I said in a few shiurim ago, and I want to mention that Rabbi Zriel writes every day the shir in Hebrew, most of it, so you can have a whole chazara from it in writing. He's a beautiful writer, a very eloquent writer. And Rabbi Zriel Engel, and it's posted on the yeshiva.net every day's shir in Chassidus. His transcript is posted usually during the day or in the evening. I just wanted to mention that because I said I'm saying something I said for a few days ago, that the mashpia and the makabel always have to be committed to each other. If there's no dual commitment, it breaks. It's a relationship. It's a very serious relationship. And both have to show up. But one has to understand that when one doesn't show up, the ramifications are much deeper than when the other doesn't show up. If the mashpia shows up and the makabel doesn't show up, what's the mashpia left with? A pregnant child. That's what he's left with. A pregnant child, metaphorically. Which is not fun. Because he's looking for birth. But the child remains. And it remains in his womb. He's frustrated. He's annoyed. He was looking forward. It's disappointing. I don't know if it's too of a mundane metaphor. You know when you're trying to sneeze and it's not coming out? You know that feeling, right? and you're waiting and you're waiting. You need the sneeze to come out, right? You need it to come out. I went to be Menachem Avel, somebody, so there was somebody there who was really nudgy. He was a nudnik. You know, sometimes you have somebody at Shepetzechan, and he was driving the poor Avelim crazy. So somebody said a story, and he said that there was once a Nichem Avelim by Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, the son of Reb Velvela, the son of the Brisker Rav, Rabbi Yosef Dov. Rabbi Yoshe Ber from Yerushalayim. The Brisker Rav had a few children, has a few children, and the oldest one was Rabbi Yosef Dov, Rabbi Yoshe Ber. So he passed away, I think, in 1984. So he had some children sitting there, and one of them was, you know, a little eccentric. There was somebody driving him crazy. So he looks at him and he says, Zog de Pasik und trag sich ab. Say Hamakim Menachem und trag sich ab. Zog de Pasik und trag sich ab. Say what you gotta say and move on with your life. So sometimes you're just feeling, you know, you need to let, you want to zog the Pasik and trag, he needs to let it out. It's very frustrating. There's an expression in Zohar, woe unto people who speak, vai lahu mila, the naflal udnin de la shaman. Woe unto the words that fall on ears that do not absorb. Udnin are ears that do not absorb. It's a painful experience to hit a brick wall. Yosem masha ha'egel roitzel lahanik. That's what you mean, yeah? Linek hapara roitzel lahanik. Right? Not just the calf wants to nurse, even more the mother wants to give, because it's very painful. It's very painful for a mother to hold on to the milk, as we know. She needs to let it out. She needs to give it. That's true physically, but it's also true psychologically, spiritually. That's one level. But there's also the opposite level that people don't often realize. What if the makabel shows up? What if the makabel shows up fully and there's no mashpia? Here the pain is much deeper. Because what did the mashpia do to prepare? The mashpia took what he has and he prepared it and focused it to give. And there's nobody to take it. Okay, so I have to stay with it inside. But what did the makabel do to be present? Hanachas hatzmusai. Hanachas hatzmusai means you made yourself very vulnerable. You trusted. You recreated yourself as an empty vessel in the most positive sense. You emptied yourself out of yourself in order to be a makabel. That's a very vulnerable moment, intellectually and emotionally. And why did you do it? Because you're waiting to absorb something. And you show up, the guy is not there. And I don't mean the guy is not there physically, that too. But I'm talking about there's nobody there. There's nobody there. Very often in marriages, right, you see this. And it's just very, very deep. This is not so simple. Not many men understand this and not many women understand this, but it's a very deep dynamic that goes on. Because often the man is called a mashpia, the woman is called a makabel. Now people often wonder, what does that mean? I mean, a woman is plenty mashpia and a man is plenty makabel. Women give a lot and men are needy, men need a lot. But there's a very profound component to this term. Because there's an expression in Gemara about marriage. It's very powerful. Ein isha kaireses bris ela lami sha'asa kli. Right? It's a very profound statement. Chazal say, a woman does not create a covenant only with the person who made her a vessel. Which is their way of saying that there's a loyalty that a woman has to a husband, a complete dedication that she has, to the point that, I'm just using these words, I don't mean these words literally. Hashem made a woman that every month she becomes a keli for a child. The uterus develops, the rechem, from the word rachum, compassion, develops in a way that it's ready to carry something. It's ready to be a makabel. It's literally a clay reikon, a cholol reikon. That's what it is. a chalal reikon in order to be able to absorb a child. But what's true with a child is also true in her relationship. That a woman in a marriage, in the ideal situation, opens herself up and empties herself, waiting for a husband to fill it with love, with respect, with confidence, with guidance, with inspiration. And the man has the responsibility and the ability to be able to be there that way. And she's kaireses bris. She will make a covenant. A covenant means, when you make a kaireses bris, it's a complete loyal commitment. But two things have to happen. Number one, she has to be able to be mekabel from him. If he shows up and there's nobody there, right? A woman tells you, your wife tells you, I really don't need you. Just do your own thing. Some men think they like it because you could stay home, you could stay in shul till 12 o'clock, you can go here, you can go there. But it frustrates a marriage. Much worse is the makabel shows up and there's no mashpia. The makabel empties out the space and there's nobody to fill it. Now it could be he's too scared, he doesn't have confidence, he thinks he's a nobody, he's busy, he's occupied, he's stressed, he's overwhelmed, he's detached. But the womb is here and there's nobody to fill it. So the makabel emptied everything out. In other words, I redefine myself as a makabel of you. And what am I left? And I'm just, what's the word? Yeah. I'm left to hang dry. That's a very painful reality. The mashpia who doesn't give, okay, he remains with a lot of stuff. It's painful, it's frustrating if he doesn't have who to give to. But the makabel who doesn't have that person to fill up, over here there's a certain sense of very deep abandonment. It's a form of, I don't want to sound very dramatic, but it's a form of very deep psychological and emotional death. Like there's a little bit of a murder here in the sense that I emptied myself out. And this is what I was waiting for. This is what I was hoping for. And there's nothing left. So what am I left with? I'm left with nothing. My old self, I got rid of. The new self, the new relationship that I invested everything in the relationship, nobody showed up. I'm left to hang. And that creates a very deep sense of abandonment and pain that most women can't even articulate what it is. Because it's a very, very subtle thing. And today's culture, where there's so much confusion of roles and who everybody is, you can't even speak this language. But this is the truth. This is the truth. If you're very honest about relationships and their potential and their ideal state, this is what happens very, very often. And this doesn't mean a woman only receives, because as we see, the student brings out the deepest things in the teacher. Mitalmida, you learn much more from your students than you learn from your rebbes and you learn from your colleagues. Everybody knows the most you learn in life is from your wife. Right? You're all looking at me like I was mechadish this in 2019. You don't know this? Reb Moshe, who do you learn most from?
I heard once that there is a movement in Israel for women on the wall that ladies insist on making
Yes.
person said that if you look into the lives of these women, you will find that they are doing it because the husband doesn't do as he should do. He doesn't do these things. They feel the need for it.
I don't know the women of the walls. I can't. I hear.
Relationship.
What happens is when the makabel is not being filled by the presence and the love of the mashpia, the makabel has to be filled in different ways. And this creates tremendous emotional confusion and results in chaos. As the Gemara says in the beginning of Maseches Saita, that when a woman betrays the relationship, it's much more toxic than when a man betrays the relationship. Because the void is so much deeper. So when that void has to be filled with alien things, it's very, very toxic. Men are more compartmentalized. You know, you go to the office, you forget that you're married, you're eating your pastrami sandwich, I don't mean in the 9 days, with mustard, right? Yeah. Siyum, Zelena, Siyum. You know, man, right? He's watching a game of a tennis match in Czechoslovakia, two people he never heard about, eating pastrami and mustard. the last thing he thinks of himself is as a married man, right? Even if he's listening to a Shia by Rabbi YY on the yeshiva.net while he's eating the pastrami sandwich, unless I'm talking about marriage, the last thing he's thinking, we're compartmentalized. Then he comes home and all is good. Women are not that way. The Kaylee, she's married 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when that void, when that openness is filled, it's very, very powerful. That's what the Gemara says. There's a krisis bris, l'misha asa kli. L'misha asa kli means the one who carved out the vessel, which is of course an expression for intimacy, the first intimacy, Eishes Neurim. Asa kli is carving out the vessel. But emotionally what it means is, it's the keli of the makabel. When it's not there, there is such a deep void, so different things can happen. There could be very deep pain, very deep frustration. This is what comes out in offices of therapists and marriage counselors all the time. This is what's happening. What can also happen is substitutes. I have to substitute. I have to fill it in new ways. And this becomes very profound. I'm using the example of men and women because it's just very, very drastic and intense, but it's true within every person. Each one of us is a mashpia. Each one of us is a makabel. All these shiurim we're talking about are not just one person versus another, but it's also you vis-a-vis yourself. There is that which we're mashpia to others. There's that which we have to be makabel. In our own relationships, everyone is masculine and feminine. That hanachas atzmusoi, in a powerful, good marriage where everybody knows who they are and they're ready to be there, there's nothing that triggers the tainug and the desire of the mashpia to give like the empty vessel that the makabel creates. Because it's mamish like waiting. I'm waiting. I'm here. I'm waiting. Reb Nochem B'Stoifus. Yeah. You don't want to sit down?
Now about the Makabel, the Talmud, when he sees Tzavu Panav Shalom,
Yeah.
the Mashpia. But this is now the second phase of Rebbe Talmud.
Yeah.
They already had the first year, which the Rebbe
Yeah.
said goodbye to, and
Yeah.
the Kiddush came to. Where was all the talk about the Makabel emptying his towel before the first year? Why is it only coming up now in Tzavu Panav with the new kid?
No, he said before that a Talmud Muvik does that. He said that before. He said he didn't use the word Tzavu, but he said about the Chalor Reik and Talmud Muvik. Yeah.
This happened to one of my boys in ninth grade. We were one of the yeshivas, a local yeshiva. Where he showed up ready to learn, totally into it. He's going to this fantastic yeshiva, and it was a year of transition for that yeshiva. And he said to me a couple of months in, "What were you thinking when you sent me?" He had a great reputation.
Yeah.
And he got turned off the internet. 20 years ago.
Why? What happened the first day? He was ready, enthusiastic to learn, and what happened?
Over the next few weeks, I saw that they didn't show up. So it was
It's very, very
done on a
hurtful.
very surfacey
Sometimes you're sitting with students and you could see people, they want to change, they want to open up, they want to be, and it took a lot. It's not so easy always. Sometimes you see with teenagers and you don't show up, or you show up with cynicism, or you make fun. The worst thing is to make, for a person, it's a certain, hanachas atzmusi is not an easy thing. I'm redefining my focus. And I'm literally carving out an empty space of bittul in me for this. And the worst thing a mashpia to do is, it's like, oh, you're lying, you're a joker, I don't have time for you, who do you think you are? Whatever, all those attitudes. Whether it's verbally or even just facial features. And it breaks the makabel in a way that other things cannot break. The mashpia will not be broken so easily if nobody shows up. It's just frustrating, bunch of wilde chayas, nobody's here. Okay, go home, learn yourself. Learn yourself another 20 years. A little too much milk. Okay, you'll figure it out. But the other way is very, very painful. Very painful. Yeah. Oy, oy, oy. Rabbi Avram. Huh? He said about tshuva, he opens himself up. He wants to be filled, and then they put in pots and pans. Yeah.
They don't tell him before.
What have you seen?
Seen it a lot.
You've seen it a lot.
Big scale.
Okay. So it's the Cholol Reikon, it's the Hanachas Atzmusai that creates the Tainug. The Tainug in the Tainug HaPoshet. Tainug HaPoshet means, not just Tainug. Tainug HaPoshet means Tainug that's mufshet. It's divested from any other characteristic, meaning it touches one of the deepest chords in the mentor. It's not just a lot, everything has pleasure in it. A cup of water is also pleasurable. And reading is pleasurable, and listening to music is pleasurable. There's so many, everything in the world has Tainug in it. Tainug HaPoshet, in the Mashpiyah, Ma'ir Tainug HaPoshet Shla Mashpiyah. The Hanachas Atzmusai, the suspension of self, of the student, of the disciple, triggers the deepest chord of pleasure in the teacher to give. And since now the student is waiting for the greater hashpa'ah, the new idea, now he realizes he has to prepare himself and divest himself on two levels. First is Hainu Hanachas Kol Atzmusai Ulehiskarivas Atzmai Liyos Rak Nekuda Tachas HaYesoid HaMashpiyah. Two things. One is Hanachas Kol Atzmusai, and the other one is Lehiskariv Liyos Rak Nekuda Tachas HaYesoid HaMashpiyah. You know, the richness of this metaphor is it's using all of the language that the Mekubalim, that the Arizal and his students used over the generations when they revealed Kabbalah, which they always had these expressions of Moichin Chadashim and Moichin Da'atika, and there's a famous expression with Arizal, Nekuda Tachas Yesoid, right? So he's using all these expressions in the metaphor in order to be able to understand the message that the Sfarim HaKadoshim were saying about this time of the year. So there's two experiences that the student now goes through. Beis Hafshatas. Hafshatas comes from the word Upashat as B'gadov, like it says by the Kayan we say in the morning. He removes his clothes. Hafshata, it means to skin, lahafshit, right? Hafshatas habehema, you skin, meaning you remove the layers. You're always mafshit. When you're parshat b'gadov, you're removing layers, you're removing garments. Hafshata always means to strip something from layers and get down to a deeper place, a deeper core. It's skinning. An animal is covered with hide, a lot of hide, and you're skinning it. You're removing it. That's what lahafshitas atzmai means. He's being mafshed himself. He's removing things that were there and a part of him and there for many years. In learning also, there's something called hafshata. Hafshata means when you strip, when you remove the layers of an idea and you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to the core. Hafshata is like it becomes in a way more abstract and more abstract and more abstract. Like you remove it from all the layers that are covering anything but its truth. So there's two hafshatas. The first is Hanachas Kol Atzmusai, which is very, very deep. Hanachas Kol Atzmusai, we explained, is putting aside his entire essence to be able to receive, to be able to absorb. That itself requires a tremendous mental effort. And it requires, of course, tremendous trust. That's always critical. Because how can I put everything aside if I'm going to get bupkas? I'm not going to do that, right? That's why it's so hard for us to even understand what Hanachas Atzmusai means. Because there are many models that are missing for this. There has to be real trust, real trust. if I feel I might be backstabbed or front stabbed, I'm not doing this. I'm going to remain in my bulletproof vest. But a bulletproof vest is the exact opposite of Hanachas Atzmusay. Back to the marriage mashal, this is what often happens in marriages. Everybody's wearing bulletproof vests. You know what I mean? So when you start shooting your arrows, it won't kill me. I'm wearing a bulletproof vest, you're wearing a bulletproof. You remember in Lakota Torah, the Balatanya brings an expression from Ksuvas. Hu bevigdoi, v'hi bevigda, yoitzi, v'yiten ksuva. If he remains in his cloaks, she remains in her cloaks. It's not a marriage. Get divorced and give her a ksuva. And he explains spiritually that with Hashem it's the same thing. If you refuse to take off your clothes, it's always hu bevigda v'hi bevigda. Everything is a relationship, but there's only begadim. There's no hafshata. There's a reason for it. That way, I don't have to trust fully. I'm in my clothes. If you say something good, I'll take it into my pocket. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about here complete transparency, complete vulnerability. I could fall into your arms, you could fall into my arms, without anything to fall back on. Ooh, das ist nicht so pashat. Das ist nicht so pashat. You really have to be able to trust. Ah? If your vulnerability has been betrayed once, twice, 3 times, especially as a child, and every child is naturally a makabel. We know how a child is so ready to absorb like a wet sponge, and that's betrayed, and then by the time you're 14 years old, you have made a commitment, I trust nobody ever. And that becomes your paradigm. And then you meet your soulmate. And that's what you're dealing with for the next 30 years. And it's very, very heavy. So we have to be aware of these qualities. So the first hafshat is hanachas kol atzmusay. Hanachas kol atzmusay literally means to put aside his essence. I'm a receptacle. That's who I am. And then there is liskarev es atzmoy liyas rak nekuda tachas hayesod hamashpia. This will become a little more clear later. To bring himself close. There is what not and there's what yeah. Hanachas kol atzmusay means you put everything aside. That's not enough. That's not enough. Negation is never enough. Now there's the positive. The positive is, I know that I could be makabel something. It's not hanachas atzmusay just for hanachas atzmusay. It's never about self-negation, period. It's self-negation in order for the self to be able to become aligned with that which it's capable of being aligned. Self-negation as an ideal in and of itself doesn't cut it. Self-negation, anachas kol atzmusay, can even be dangerous. Anachas kol atzmusay means I put myself at a side, but for what? For what? So I'm just empty now? I want to get close to become a nekuda, tachas hayesod hamashpia. There's an expression in Sifrei HaKabbalah that Malchus becomes Nekuda Tachas HaYesod. Yesod is the last one of the 6 midos before Malchus. In Zohar it says that Yesod is associated with a certain part of the body. Chesed is the right arm, Gvura the left arm, Tefer is the torso, Netzach the right thigh, Hoy the left. Yesod, I quote Tikunei Zohar Hagdama, Ois Bris Kodesh. Many say it in Pasach Eliyahu, Erev Shabbos, before Mincha. Yesod Siyuma de Gufa, Ois Bris Kodesh. Malchus Peh. Malchus the mouth. So Chachma bin Adas are 3 regions of the brain: right brain, left brain, center brain. Then you have Chachma bin Adas. Das is the synthesizer. You have Yesod is all the way in the polar opposite on the bottom of the body, what's called the bris. Why is that associated with Yesod? That's the koyach hamashpia, literally. And it's the power that God gave the human body for reproduction, for procreation. That's why it's called Yesod. Yosef is always called Midas HaYesod. He was particularly tested in this area. And the Zohar says he's the only one called a tzaddik, Yosef a tzaddik, because he prevailed in this particular area. Reb Tzaddik, HaKoyen, his svarim is very busy with this, many svarim. But the Nekud is, Yesod is the Koyach HaMashpiyah, but the way it comes down all the way till Tachlis, where there can actually be the emitting of the seed of life, which can then be absorbed by the feminine, Malchus, and create a child. What we spoke before about Chachma is the seed, but it still has to be absorbed and developed, right? It has to go through a whole process. And that process comes to fruition in Malchus, which is the mouth. Mouth means communication, but Malchus is also the feminine counterpart. So the Yisoid meets Malchus, is the Mashpia meeting the Makabel. So in spiritual language, Nekuda Tachas Yisoid means that Malchus says it concentrates itself into a Nekuda right on the Yisoid in order to be able to receive Yisoid. So first it empties itself from everything else, and then it becomes, its entire identity is now one Nekuda. What is it? One Nekuda that just wants to be Makabel from Yisoid. It contracts completely. And what's left of it? One Nekuda. So first I have to empty myself from everything, Hanachas Hatzmusai, and then the next step is he becomes a Nekuda, Mamish, one tiny Nekuda that's concentrated. It's contracted, it's restricted, the ultimate symptom, Tachas HaYesod. When the mentor sees this preparation, this creates in him the deepest pleasure to give the new Chiddush. To the point that now the recipient can receive it and receive the same pleasure that the teacher had from the new insight. Now the student also has it, and more, even more. Why? For the recipient, even the original class was very exciting. Certainly when he gets this chiddush, which even legabi the mashpia was a chiddush, for the makabel it's like, wow, it's winning the lottery. His tainug for it is so much deeper. His appreciation of it is so much deeper. At kan toiref hamashal. Here at last the parable ends. At kan toiref hamashal. This is the mashal. Toiref is the, like in the Toiref and Toifus, the main body of the mashal, like the main text of the mashal. This is basically the mashal. Test. No, this is tough. Toiref, not test. The uterus tears apart when there's no child. Right? It dissolves, and that's what dam nida is. That's what blood is. The blood of the monthly cycle is the uterus prepared to be a makabel. It was ready. Nobody showed up. So what happens? Literally, it tears. It gets destroyed, and it generates the flow of blood. That's literally what happens. Nobody showed up. Nobody's to blame. I mean, whatever the situation is, it's not about blaming anybody. It's a fascinating reality. We take these things for granted, but this is like a system in reality. It's a very serious system. Like, what was going on? And what the Gemara says in Eruvin, it started after the Chet Tzadas, right? Dam Nida starts after the Chet Tzadas. In other words, when the Mashpia and Makabel became disaligned, when the Mashpia and the Makabel in the world became disaligned, when the snake turned to Chava and said, God doesn't want you to eat from the tree because he's looking for power, and if you eat, he's going to have competition in this world, and he really doesn't need it. So suddenly God becomes this new type of reality. I'm protecting myself, God is protecting himself. Suddenly now we're like, instead of having a marriage where we're excited to be here for each other, we have a marriage where we're trying to protect everyone is trying to protect themselves from the other. I'm literally dodging you. Now what does that marriage look like? It's very common in marriages, right? It's like, I need to get the last word, you need to get the last word, I'm busy finding, where I'm going to be right, and It's a disaster. That's what the serpent introduced. The serpent introduced it. He didn't say don't listen to Hashem. He just said God has issues. That's all he said. He has issues with competition. He doesn't like people like him. And I'm sure, it says Vanochash Haya Arum. The best translation for Arum is sophisticated. I'm sure that Nachash added one more line. At least if he would have been living in 2019. And usually he is. Snakes don't die so fast. He would have added one more thing. You know, I even have empathy for God. He never had a mother. He never had a nurturing father. Nobody ever gave him love, right? He is desperate for power. It's his only MO. Of course he told you not to eat from the tree. I mean, Mamash says that in the pasuk, right? Ki yodeya Elokim, ki yodeya Elokim. An interesting thing is that if you look in Bereshis, I'll give a share one day on it. If you look in Bereshis, the Nachash only refers to Hashem as Elokim. Only Elokim. He speaks about Elokim, only Elokim. After the story and before the story, suddenly a new name, Hashem Elokim. When Hashem asks Adam Ayeka, Vayomer Hashem Elokim L'Adam, the Nachash never acknowledged Elokim. Never acknowledged Yud Kevavke, which is going to be part of what we're going to learn about. So Dam Nida happens after the Eitz Hadas. When there's disalignment, the Makabel can't be Makabel anymore. Because I can only be Makabel from you if I feel that you have me. You're going to take care of me. If you're not going to take care of me, why would I empty myself out just to get a punch in the face? That's why we speak so much about trust. If the woman doesn't feel that her husband is really going to fill that womb, fill that keli and take care of her, she's going to stop opening up. She's going to close the lid on the relationship. And it becomes very painful for him too. Because it's very painful for a husband when the wife, what's the word? Withdraws, yeah. Yeah. You know? The ideal state. Tomorrow we're going to have a shir. Tomorrow we're going to have a shir, Be'ezer Hashem, Bli Neder. But 7:30, okay? We're going to go a little later because I have a very late night tonight. We're going to start 7:30 in the morning. Tomorrow's Friday, right? 7:30 in the morning, Be'ezer Hashem. Everybody have a wonderful day. It's a pleasure and honor to have you with us. Reb Label, I'm so happy to see that you made it from there to here. Next week you're going to be sitting near Reb Shlomo, huh? Besser with the Zayda? The Zayda given Besser with him.
Honor and a privilege to have you. Afterwards also tomorrow?
I'm going to try. I'm going to try. I hope so, but... I think so. 7:30, 8:30. Bli Neder, yeah. Is verstanden?
Ja.
Good stuff, huh? Was macht ihr, Avram? Regards from your daughter. I saw she showed up. Huh? She's the Rosh Hashiva of Skokie. Tired of Yid. Ah? What? That's true. That's true. That's true. Haroshem Tafas? Haroshem Tafas? למה נתרשמת כל כך אתמול? אמרת שקיבלת אהבה חדשה. welche נקודה? Okay. אתה יכול לכתוב משוב.